heroes in a half shell. Turtle power.
Dave Sim, that would be me, interviews Kevin Eastman in a multi-part series on the origins of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 8, 1986, the Cerebus crossover, the front cover of which recently auctioned for an eye-watering $78,000 at HA.com. Turtles 8 Remastered 2023 is being offered March 1st to March 31st on Kickstarter, with a series of variant covers by some of today's hottest indie creators. Don't miss it. And don't miss Kevin's 12-piece Turtles art auction, including a page from Turtles number 8 with Cerebus on it, coming in the March 30th to April 2nd Heritage Signature Auction at HA.com. Also in the March 30th to April 2nd Heritage Signature Auction, my 3 Turtles number 8 variant covers. Now, let's talk to Kevin.
The convention in Kansas City, and was traveling from Thursday to Monday night, and yes, finally boots back on the ground, and deadline doom and all that malarkey.
I don't envy you. I remember how much conventions took out of me. Like it seems like it's all you're doing is just sitting and talking and being nice to people. What's the big deal? And it's like, no, it's a very unnatural natural thing to do on a weekend.
Well, it's funny. It's I found over the years, now coming up on 40 years of doing this stuff, probably concentrated comic conventions we've done for probably about 200 shows over the last 10 years or so. But it is part of the relationships and the marketing and the one-on-one communication with most times, certainly for Turtles, some really lifelong fans that have been personally vested in your characters and your creation for many, many years. A lot of them since they wore the Turtles Halloween costume for 3 years in a row till, as they say, their parents had to burn it and throw it away because it was just rotting off their body. But it's a wonderful experience, and it is sort of, it's very theatrical. Even I do a slideshow and I do a presentation and talk, take questions, but it's like you want everyone to experience. Certainly, there's lots of people that I've met a number of times in a row over the years, but that's a very small percentage. Most of them have never heard the stories and have never, you want it to be like a play, as important to you as it is to them. For the first time hearing it, it's great. So, but it does. It's a full day and a half of recovery at the very least.
Yeah.
No complaint. Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to talk about the second last page of the Cerebus crossover, page 44.
Yeah.
And I looking at the page in the Heritage catalog, it's like now I want to see all of the pages from Turtles 8, particularly for the amount of effort you're putting in on Rennett's hair. It's I'm looking at the second panel on page 44, and I'm going, well, if that isn't 1980s crunchy hair, I don't know what is. And it brought it all back for me. The mousse, the gel, the styling spray, One girl that I knew just got really basic about it and used toothpaste.
I had an immediate flash to something about Mary kind of thing. But no, what's funny is the actual character of Renette is based on a couple different characters, but in part, the first employee at Mirage Studios and took over lettering for me was a guy named Steve Levine. And when we lived in Sharon, Connecticut, he had a girlfriend. This is even though issue 8 was written and laid out years later. He had this girlfriend named Renette, and she was just the sweetest, loveliest girl with the biggest, weirdest hairspray hair you've ever seen. And she was incredibly smart, like 4.0 college student, but would trip and fall down on flat surfaces
Right.
walking.
Right.
And laugh. And she was just very funny. She just was incredibly clumsy. One particular moment was really funny that Steve was driving her somewhere in her car, and she was sitting in the passenger seat and had her feet up on the windshield, and they had to stop quick for something. She pressed so hard on the windshield that the whole windshield popped off the car out onto the street. It was just...
That's klutziness raised to an art form.
Exactly. And so I just loved, she just would laugh, and she thought that was the funniest thing ever. And her heart was always with the best of intentions. It was just, so so Renette was definitely modeled after this particular person. But as we,
And that was her name, Renette.
That was her name, Renette. And
Okay.
over the years, many years, I've always drawn on characters of multiple people I've either known or people we've seen in movies or I've seen in movies that base characters and personalities on things that we write when we write. Fan favorite is a character named Casey Jones that I created with Peter around between issue 3 and 4.
With the hockey stick.
With the hockey stick, yep. So he was created, and that issue was published in 1985. In 1986, John Carpenter came out with a movie with Kurt Russell called Big Trouble in Little China. And Kurt Russell played this kind of gung-ho, big-hearted lunkhead named Jack Burton. And I've never written Casey Jones since that day of not thinking, what would Jack Burton do when I write Casey? So, it's funny how things linger with you.
Yes. Yeah. It's. Do you think that that's an accident? Do you think it was an unconscious steal? I never know in my own cases whether I could say that specifically or not.
Well, it's funny. It's some characters can be a collection of a particular character you write can be a collection of multiple characters, and others can be very specific. In fact, I always think of Peter Laird when I write Donatello, because Peter Laird was one of those guys that I used to tease him because it was like a Jethro Bodine from the Beverly Hillbillies, where he would get a Casio calculator watch, but he would pull his shirt sleeve up to his elbow so that you could see his Casio calculator watch. And when we went out to lunch and we would sort of divvy up the check, he would sort of figure out the percentages by using his calculator watch. And I just loved it. And he was the first, he had a Commodore 64. He was the first one that I knew that brought home a computer and said, this is going to be the next big thing. And I said, these will never last, kind of thing. It was just a glorified calculator or something. But no, he's always the technical kind of guy. Take stuff apart and put it back together just for giggles. But yeah, it's funny where these characters derive from and arrive from.
Yeah. I do have to ask, because we've got two panels here of Rennet, and certainly amazing detail. And if you have the original page, you've got detail that nobody else will ever have access to. Where did the pocket watches come from?
I love it. The pocket watches came from a gift from my grandfather. He gave me when I was very young. I was, every time I'd go visit him, he had a pocket watch. He used to work for the forestry service up in Maine for many years, and was just a wonderful curmudgeon-y old Mainer, heavy on the accent. Talked loud when he told the stories, would hold court a little bit, was kind of reserved otherwise. But he had this great pocket watch with a little chain, and I was just fascinated by it. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So that was kind of a tip of the hat to him. Again, I think we touched on this in one of our other chats, was the fact that I put pocket watches all over her costume was to the great chagrin and horror of Pete, who, we need to draw her from panel to panel with the pocket watches. But actually, one of the things I want to make very important, I need to send you, is I still have photocopies of all the pencils prior to you inking them. I photocopied everything before you went in through and wrote your Cerebus dialogue and did your inking.
Right.
In Cerebus. And I need to send you those just for your personal archives and for potential use in the future. And then I've got copies of all the pages after you ink Cerebus in all those pages. And then I've got finished pages. I'll send you a nice set of copies of all those. Because I really enjoyed seeing the evolution and transition for all those scenes, especially for all those pocket watches, which I did see you draw in one of your covers that's for sale in the Heritage Auction as well.
I got to tell you, it was a lot of fun. I don't know what it was about them. It was partly just the fine little details that you can get into it. Part of it is the shading. How do you shade it? Are they stuck on there? Are they sort of like molded to the contour of the breast, or do they cast a curvilinear shadow, as it were? And it's
well,
go ahead.
No, just see, ultimately a pain in the ass to draw.
Right. There was the other thing of her hat, her headdress, and she even I think it's like on page 18 of 44, and she goes, "Hey, has anybody seen my hat?" It's like I was wondering, did Kevin go, "I'm just tired of drawing this damn thing"?
It led to the original creation, with the original character inspiration of Steve's friend Renette. That the person that will walk around looking for something, or the keys to a car, where she still has them in her hand. It's always wonderful,
Right?
kind of thing. But it's funny. So much of that, and I think we brushed over this in a couple different ways in previous conversations. Was so much of it, like even her sorcerer's. She was apprenticed to a sorcerer named Laird Simultaneous.
Right.
And that in itself was just Lord Simultaneous, but it was still inspired by the Terry Gilliam Time Bandits movie, which I believe Ralph Richardson played the Time Lord. I think that was sort of chasing the Time Bandits through time, trying to get the Time Scepter back, and just the bizarreness of what Gilliam would do in his direction, in his creation. I felt like it was just a wonderful blend of things that he was trying to accomplish in his animation and try to bring that into some form of reality and fantasy reality in his live action.
Right.
I don't know. It's so it felt like it was one of those moments where you look at it and go like, well, if he can do it, anything's possible, and so you shouldn't rule something out because suddenly you're going to have a short person drive into a battle at the end of this time zone where all times connect in a World War II tank, and
Right.
somebody else coming in and something else and something. But I just love that.
Did you ever meet anybody that was involved in Time Bandits?
I didn't. I did. In fact, I probably did. There was one. It's like those Hollywood moments when somebody will ask you, "Did you ever ask anybody for their autograph?" And I've always been very afraid of meeting heroes for a lot of reasons. You just don't want to be disappointed. But I was actually I was staying at a hotel in Los Angeles when I was working there, and 4 tables over, and it was very quiet, very slow night, was Terry Jones from Monty Python. And I think I just had that one beverage too many where I told the bartender, I said, I'd like to pay for their drinks. And he agreed, and he did it. And then Terry Gilliam came over to say thank you. And I jumped up and told him who I was, which he was then incredibly pleasant, incredibly sweet about meeting this goofball from the great state of Maine.
Who's
gushing about-
had one too many?
He definitely knew I had one too many, but he was very polite. But it was funny, and not to make a long story longer, but I was actually with a good friend of mine, Paul Jenkins, who's a wonderful writer, who's from the UK, and so Paul had gone to bed early that night. I went to the bar. I met Terry Gilliam, and we had literally like probably 3.5 minutes of this wonderful exchange. That was the best moment of my life. And so when I met Paul for breakfast the next morning, Terry comes walking through the restaurant, and this is the kind of person he is. He goes, "Oh, good morning, Kevin." And I was torturing Paul. I said, "You went to bed early, and I met Terry Jones." And so Terry says, "Good morning, Kevin." And Paul looks at him and goes, "You moved in next door to my nan." And he goes, "What?" So he literally, his mother, his grandmother, lived in this street in the UK. I forget which town specifically. But Terry Jones had just moved down the street. He moved in, and he knew his nana. He goes, "Oh, you mean Cheryl?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, she's lovely." But I'm like, "Oh my God!" Suddenly now I'm, a salt shaker on the table. And anyway, that was a long story, but it was. But no, I'd love to meet Terry Gilliam. I think it's a brilliant, creative mind. I'd love to meet someday.
It's the comedian. I'm trying to remember his name, and his line about it's a small world, but I wouldn't want to paint it.
Yes, who said that? Yeah, that's a perfect line. Yeah.
So I was curious about the pocket watches because I was thinking, I wonder if that's from Time Bandits, that there's some girl in Time Bandits walking around with pocket watches stuck to her swimsuit.
I think it was like one of those, beg, borrow, and steal from a lot of different inferences of just even Time Bandits with the pocket watch my grandfather and Steve Levine's old girlfriend.
Right.
How do we arrive at this? Yeah.
I have to say, because you've self-deprecatingly said that you could never draw a character twice the same way, and it's like, yeah, once you mention that, and I'm looking over your work, I can see instances of it when April first appears. It's like you can't make up your mind whether she's a Baudet girl or a Rich Corbin girl, and so she sort of like goes from one to the other, and then something in between. But Rennet, that wasn't the case. The only picture of Rennet that doesn't look like Rennet to me is the front cover.
so right, because I feel like on the front cover, the way I painted it, she looks much older. She does. I lost a lot of the youngness and the playfulness and the youngest, the late teens, early 20-something feeling that I felt the character was, and on the cover she looked much older, more the lips and everything. But yeah, I think it was one of those things that I'm going to keep saying that we touched on some of this stuff before, but it can go on and on. In that I never really learned how to draw per se, and then I never really learned how to that consistency enough so that you could create a character and do them, front, side, back, and which you did to such wonderful effect in so many characters you developed. The Cerebus universe.
Some of them I had.
But to make them.
I had troubles
Sorry,
with Lord Julius. It's like trying to actually make somebody look like Groucho Marx. That's a very subtle facial composition. So people would ask me for a Lord Julius sketch, and it's like, no, can you pick another character? I mean, just about anybody else, and I'll be happy to do you a sketch. A Lord Julius. Go ahead.
I'll say that's. No, you'll say that. Well, that's the nightmare of us, is because I thought your Lord Julius was great, and very consistent. But it is funny that we, I think it is the consistent and constant, and it's self-deprecating to a certain point. But there's also a level of frustration. And to be honest, I was offered to do a Conan story with Marvel, and I did it. And I keep thinking that I was going to approach the Conan story and draw it just like Barry Smith would. And then I realized I'm not Barry Smith, and I'm not that talented. So it came out very short. But I did notice that, like, going back through certainly the early developmental years of Barry Smith and Conan, he was really drawing full time all the time, and his art was constantly evolving. So characters did change look from panel to panel, page to page, as he was still doing these brilliantly, breathtaking pages and constant layouts and 13 panels on a page and stuff. But it is a frustration that we have this wonderful image in our mind's eye of this thing we're going to draw, and then we end up settling for what actually comes out of the end of our fingers, so to speak.
Which is idiosyncratic as well. It is one of those that segues into, where are we here? 93144, which we will get to. That's on my list of pieces that if Dave Sim was a millionaire, this is what he would be bidding on March 31st. The Secret of the Ooze illustration. So we'll make that a teaser, but in between, and we're going to take a break here, and then and come back and talk about it. I want to talk about the Interconnecting variant covers piece, which is lot number 93142, and I'm just gonna shut the record off and then turn it back on so that Dave Fisher knows that a new segment is starting. So if you can just be patient with me for a minute here.
Of course.
All right.